Caucasus region is the ancient motherland of a number of different peoples. The beautiful environment, the high mountains, pastures, rushing rivers, forests, and large alpine meadows of this land between the Caspian and the Black Seas must have been key factors in the very early human settlements here. Historically, these lands, so richly endowed by nature, have attracted those who wish to settle peacefully, as well as those who claimed by conquest. At the crossroads of Asia and Europe, they have witnessed numerous wars, and many peoples and armies have passed through. As the motherland of a number of tribes and peoples, the region is also a land with rich and unique cultures. However, over the centuries, the proud people of the Caucasus have had to fight occupying empires in defense of their freedom and independence. Sometimes they struggled successfully, but even when they had to accept defeat, their spirit of freedom remained intact. The peaceful people of the Caucasus understand very well the importance of peace and stability. However, after the movement of Armenians to the Caucasus by Tsarist Russia in the early 19th century, peaceful life in these lands was disrupted, and the seeds were sown for ethnic and territorial conflicts. Armenian migration to the Caucasus. The Roman historian Pliny the Elder wrote in the 1st century that the word Caucasus, in the language of the Iskit or Scythian tribes, originated from the word Caucasus, meaning snow-capped peak. He also believed that Iskit people of Turkic origin were an ancient people of the Caucasus. Karabakh and Borçali, old motherlands of Azerbaijani Turks, are thought to be the sites of first settlements in the Caucasus. This idea is supported by work tools and human remains dated to between 1.5 and 1.8 million years ago, and discovered by archaeologists in the Guruçay Valley and Azak Cave in Karabakh, and at the Bashkechid settlement in Borçali. The oldest urban culture in the Caucasus emerged in the historical lands of Azerbaijan in the mid-2nd century BCE. The first urban settlements, including Uzerliktepe and Nalgiztepe in Karabakh, Oglangarla and Kultepe in Nakhchivan, and Goytepe on the western shore of Lake Urmia, were formed in this period. While information about Albania and Atropatena can be found on the Pötinge map showing the countries of the ancient world from the 1st century BCE to the 5th century CE, there is no information about Armenian lands. The ancient Greek geographer Claudius Ptolemy mentioned that there were 29 cities in Caucasian Albania in the 2nd century CE. No Armenian settlements in the Caucasus region are mentioned in sources from ancient Greece and Rome. One of the famous Armenian claims is that the city of Yerevan belonged to them under the name Erubuni. A cuneiform inscription from the period of Argishti I of Urartu informs us that the temple and fortress he built in honor of the goddess Erbuni in 782 BCE had no Armenian connection. Urartu inscriptions do not mention any Armenian or Hai groupings. Unlike the Armenian language, that of Urartu does not belong to the Indo-European family. Well-known researchers, including Fritz Hommel, Albrecht Goetze, and Igor Diakonov, ascribe the language of Urartu to the Nakh-Dagestani group of the Caucasian family. In his history, The famous 5th century BCE Greek historian Herodotus mentioned that Armenians had migrated to Asia Minor from Trachea, together with the Phrygians. From 1872 to 1877, the renowned German Orientalist Andreas David Mortmann proved that the Urartu and Armenian languages are not affiliated. No toponyms indicating the existence of Armenians in the Caucasus region can be found before the 15th to 16th centuries. The current territory of Armenia is part of the historical geography of Azerbaijan. Toponyms there are from Azerbaijani Turks. In the 16th century, the Venetian geographer Giacomo Gastaldi indicated Lake Goicha on his map, and the Dutch geographer Abraham Ortelius referred to the land between the Caspian Sea and Anatolia as the lands of Turks. Armenians first arrived in the Caucasus in the 15th century. They arrived here as Christian missionaries and then worked as spies between Europe and the East, later between Russia and the East. These Armenian Gregorian priests began buying up land with capital from Armenian merchants and Venice. According to an active purchase held in Matinadaran in 1431, the Armenian Catholicos Gregor Makulu purchased the territory of 6 villages in Caucasus district from its owner Amir Rustam for 525,000 Tabriz dinars to permanently settle Armenians there. Documents of the same period show that the Caucasus district was situated within Azerbaijani lands. In 1441, the center of the Armenian Gregorian Church was moved from the city of Sis in Cilicia to a place called Uchmuedzin, or Uchkilse, in Valarshabad village, Caucasus district, by permission of Jahan Shah of the Garagoyan Lu state. The Armenians then changed the name of Uchmuedzin to Ichmiadzin. Thus, the Armenian Church, which had no historical roots in the Caucasus, began moving stateless Armenians into this land, gathering them around the church. Letters of supplication from Armenians to the Safavid Shah Abbas I and Nadir Shah Afshar are clear evidence of their not being indigenous to the Caucasus. Knowing this, Armenians later began falsifying historical sources. In March 1959, they even established the Matinadaran Institute of Ancient Manuscripts and falsified documents they found there that might prove there being newcomers to Yerevan, Karabakh, Zengezur, Tiflis, Borchale, Vedi, Dereleyez, and Shorayel. From the mid-17th century onwards, Armenians offered bribes to the Russian Tsar to allow them to settle in the South Caucasus. In August 1660, the Armenian merchant Hoja Zakhar Zagradov gave the Russian Tsar Alexei Mikhailovich a diamond throne made of ivory, gold, silver, and precious stones. It is currently held in the Kremlin Armory Chamber in Moscow. Israel Ori was the first to raise the Armenian question in the Caucasus. Raised by the Armenian Gregorian Church in the late 17th century in a spirit of hatred for Turkish Muslim people, he went to Germany and met Count Johann Wilhelm of Pfalz, promising to give him an Armenian throne that had never existed in the Caucasus. Wilhelm, however, did not take Ori's dream seriously and suggested he return to the Caucasus. Arriving in Karabakh in April 1699, Israel Ori met 5 Albanian Christian clergymen in the Ganjazar monastery. The Albanian priests expelled him, knowing him to be a spy, serving the abominable purposes of the Armenian Gregorian Church. In 1701, Ori met Russian Tsar Peter I and suggested that he build an army of 25,000 men to wage war against the Safavid state of Azerbaijan. Following his death in 1711, Ori's assistant priest, Minas Tigranyan, attempted to pursue the insidious mission to establish a fake Armenian state on Azerbaijani lands, hoping for a Russian occupation. Peter I planned to use sycophantic Armenians as spies for his designs to take the Caucasus region. By Peter's decree, adopted on the 10th of November 1724, the Armenians were to be settled on the shores of the Caspian Sea in Derbend, Baku, Gilan, Mazandaran, and Gurgan. However, this plan lapsed with the Tsar's sudden death. In 1780, Yosef Augutinsky, head of the Armenian Eparchy in Russia, and Armenian merchant Hovhannes Lazaryan negotiated with the Russian authorities for the creation of an Armenian state on the Ottoman state's border with southern Azerbaijan. A military campaign ordered by Russian Empress Catherine II against the Caucasus was also thwarted due to her death in 1796. A dialogue between Catherine II and Prince Potemkin, a member of her state council, in the historical novel Favorite by the popular writer Valentin Pikul is worth noting. Potemkin informs the Empress that the Armenians have selected Yerevan for their capital city. Catherine II replies, "Armenians do not even have a state of their own. What do they need a capital for?" Potemkin replies, "They do not have one now, but they will have one soon." Paul I, who took the imperial throne following Catherine's death, signed a decree on the 1st of October 1797 to resettle some 11,000 Armenians from lands in the Gajar state to the borders of the Caucasus region. Yosef Augutinsky informed him that the Armenian people prayed for Paul I and considered themselves religious brothers of the Orthodox Church. However, in reality, Armenians adhere to their own Catholicos and then to the Armenian Gregorian Church in their religious practice and curse other Christians, including the Orthodox Church. Tsarist Russia launched new wars in the Caucasus in the early 19th century and accelerated the movement of Armenians to the region. Following the Russian army's occupation in 1801 of Pembek village, an historical Azerbaijani area, 6,000 Azerbaijani people had to flee their native lands. After invading Ganja in January 1804, General Pavel Tsitsianov, a ruthless enemy of the Turks and Muslims, wrote to Hovhannes, the Armenian Archbishop of Tiflis, asking him to send Armenian families to Ganja and promising that every Armenian family would be provided with a house, garden, and land for agricultural work, and they would be free of all taxes. No Armenians or Hais were mentioned in any part of the Karekchai Agreement, signed between Russia and the Karabakh Khanate on the 14th of May 1805. A further indication that Armenians were not among the indigenous population of the region. By 1823, the Christian Albanian people were pointedly described as Armenian Gregorian in the census taken in Karabakh district by order of General Alexei Yermolov. The toponyms in the Karabakh Khanate on the last map added to the Atlas of the Russian Empire in 1823 show that the majority population of Karabakh was Azerbaijani Turk. By the Turkmenchai Treaty of February 1828, the Yerevan and Nakhchivan Khanates, ruled by Azerbaijani Turk dynasties, were taken into the Russian Empire. A fictional Armenian district in areas surrounding Yerevan and Nakhchivan was established by decree of Tsar Nicholas I in March of the same year. General Ivan Paskovich, commander of the Russian troops in the Caucasus, assigned an Armenian spy, Gazaros Lazaryan, to organize the migration of Armenians to the Caucasus. Article 15 of the Turkmenchai Treaty stipulated the movement of Armenians from Gajar Iran to the territories occupied by Tsarist Russia in northern Azerbaijan. In his appeal to Armenians, Gazaros Lazaryan stated, "In Russia, you will see that you have equal rights with all of His Majesty's other citizens. You will forget all your sufferings and gain a new motherland in a place where Christians live. Hurry, time is precious. Russian troops will soon leave Iran, and then migration will be more difficult, and we will not be responsible for your safety on the way. Even though you will incur some losses, you will soon gain everything and forever." Armenians in southern Azerbaijan, Marakha, were the first to be moved to Karabakh in March 1828. In 1978, their descendants erected a monument inscribed with the words Marakha 150 in Agdere to commemorate the 150th anniversary of their arrival in Karabakh. When the Karabakh conflict began in 1988, they demolished this monument themselves, as it was proof of their being newcomers to the Caucasus region. In August 1828, more than 200 Armenian families were moved from Gajar Iran to a place called Sugovushan, near the Terter River. They even falsified the name of this place, calling it Madagiz. The historical name of Soguvushan was restored after its liberation from Armenian occupation during the 44-day Patriotic War in autumn 2020. The Russian researcher Nikolai Shavrov wrote of the 1828-1830 Armenian migration to the Caucasus. 40,000 Iranian and 84,000 Turkish Armenians were moved to the South Caucasus from 1828 to 1830 and were placed on the best state lands of the Yelizavetpol and Yerevan provinces, as well as in the Borchale, Ahishka, and Akhalkalek districts of Tiflis province. We should keep in mind that apart from the 124,000 official migrants, there were many unofficial ones, and in total, the number of migrants far exceeded 200,000 people. Nikolai Shavrov states that in the early 20th century, 1 million of the 1.3 million Armenians in the South Caucasus were not natives, but migrants planted by Russia. After some time, the Armenians moved to the Caucasus by Tsarist Russia in the early 19th century began forming terrorist organizations, the Armenikan, Hinchak, and Dashnak Sutyun parties. Their purpose was to conduct ethnic cleansing, extend their territory by genocide, and establish the first Armenian state in history by terrorism. On the 12th of June 1903, Emperor Nicholas II signed an order passing the property of the Armenian Gregorian Church to the jurisdiction of the Russian Land and Property Ministry. This was on the initiative of Count Golitsyn, the chief civil affairs officer in the Caucasus. In response, the Church of Ichmiadzin and the Dashnak Sutyun party prepared a plot to assassinate Nicholas II. Golitsyn filed a criminal case against the organizer of the plot, the Armenian Catholicos Milketich Krimian, and stated that he would eradicate the Armenians' roots, and stated in one of his speeches, "I will make sure that the only Armenian left in Tiflis will be a stuffed Armenian figure in the Tiflis Museum." Armenian terrorists attacked and severely injured Count Golitsyn in the botanical garden near Tiflis. Failing to kill him, they tried to blow up his palace. Armenian terror was becoming more and more unbridled. The governor of Baku, Count Mikhail Nakashidze, also fell victim to Armenian terror in May 1905. Massacres by Armenian armed groups carried out in the Caucasus from 1905 to 1906 left more than 200 Azerbaijani villages in ruins and devastation in 8 cities. More than 10,000 Azerbaijanis were killed in the carnage in Yerevan, Nakhchivan, Derelez, Goicha, Shoreyel, Sormeli, Karabakh, Zengezur, Ganja, Gazakh-Borchala, and Tiflis. The states of Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Armenia were established in the South Caucasus in May 1918. According to the agreement between the Ottoman state and Armenia signed on the 4th of June in Batumi, the territory of Armenia covered approximately 9,000 square kilometers. From the very first days of its establishment, however, Armenia began making territorial claims on Azerbaijan and Georgia and chose the gun as the way to expand its border. First, the Armenians destroyed Azerbaijani villages in the former Yerevan province, and then in the Zengezur and Borchala districts. In December 1918, the Georgian government took 18 to 45-year-old Armenian citizens into military custody in specialized camps near Kutaisi to foil plans to attack the rear of the Georgian army. Great tragedies were inflicted by Armenians on the Caucasus region from 1918 to 1920. Genocide was committed against thousands of Azerbaijani and Georgian people. Between 1948 and 1953, about 100,000 Azerbaijanis from more than 200 settlements in 24 districts of the Armenian SSR and the city of Yerevan were deported from their historical lands. And from 1988 to 1989, some 250,000 Azerbaijanis were banished from their lands in 22 villages and 6 cities during the final ethnic cleansing of the territory of Armenia. Over the past 200 years, more than 2,000 settlements and hundreds of historical and cultural monuments of the Azerbaijani people have been erased from present Armenian territory. All this was done by Armenians and their patrons to create a mono-ethnic Armenian state on the historical lands of Azerbaijan. With the Soviet attachment of part of Western Azerbaijan to Armenia, the 9,000 square kilometer territory of 1918 Armenia had increased to 29,800 square kilometers by 1988. Armenians have attempted to declare themselves the masters of not only Azerbaijani, but also of Georgian tangible cultural heritage and lands. As the Georgian proverb has said, an Armenian came, a new problem came. In his work, Armenian Scholars and Crying Stones, the Georgian writer and public figure Ilya Chavchavadze notes, Armenians are trying to wipe us completely from the face of this earth, to appropriate our entire history, chronicles, historical monuments, all of our services to Christianity for the sake of our souls, our historical heritage, and everything that belongs to us, to their own names by various frauds. In the book Armenian Churches in Georgia, published in 1995 in Yerevan, it was claimed that there were 650 Armenian churches in Georgia. In 2015, the head of the Armenian eparchy in Georgia appealed to the Georgian government and demanded the transfer of 450 churches to their jurisdiction. Armenians are currently trying to create a new conflict zone in the former Akhalkalek-Ahiska, now Javaketia region, where they settled in the early 19th century with further territorial claims against Georgia. Their support for the separatist Abkhazian regime assisted the deportation of Georgians from there. Envying the culture of other people and fixing their eyes on the lands of others leans on Armenian historical traditions. Happy to enjoy the hospitality of others' lands, hence the large diasporas in Russia, the USA, and France, among other countries, they are much less keen to demonstrate tolerance and hospitality on their own land, even in the midst of significant population decline. Today, Armenia has become the most ethnically homogeneous country in the Caucasus region. And the mono-ethnic environment there tends to breed conditions of intolerance and enmity towards other cultures and religions. It also makes life less colorful and culturally poorer. Perhaps this is another factor in the Armenian exodus to culturally richer countries. The recent 44-day war of liberation revealed the poverty of thought of those in occupation for nearly 30 years. They left behind a literal wasteland of neglect and ruin. There is an offer on the table for Armenia to open up, cooperate, and prosper along with the rest of the region, rather than wither in aggressive isolation. Now there is an opportunity to establish peace and security in the Caucasus. For this, the Armenians who struggle with poverty and misery while fantasizing about a great Armenia will need to move on from their fairy tales and analyze the existing reality with clear heads. As former counselor to the Armenian president Gerard Libaridian once said, Armenians need either to form normal relations with their neighbors or leave these lands for good. History gives Armenians a last chance to coexist in peace with the local peoples of the Caucasus.